Have you ever felt like life keeps throwing curveballs your way? Like you're constantly being tested, stretched, and challenged in ways others aren't? Maybe you've wondered, why me? What if I told you that these struggles aren't random, that they're actually signs, clear markers that God has chosen you for something far greater than you can imagine? Being chosen doesn't mean an easy path. It means a meaningful one. It means you're being prepared, shaped, and strengthened for a purpose that's bigger than you. Today, I want to walk you through 7 signs that God is calling you into something extraordinary. And if you recognize even one of these in your life, take heart, because you're on the right path. There's a moment in life when you start feeling restless, not in an impatient, fleeting way, but in a deep, soul-stirring kind of way. It's that feeling that whispers to you in the quiet moments, nudging you, telling you that you're meant for something more. You go through your daily routine, but something inside you feels out of sync. The conversations that once felt engaging now seem repetitive. The goals you once chased don't excite you the way they used to. It's as if a part of you is waking up, yearning for something beyond what you can see right now. And that feeling, that discomfort in the ordinary, it's not a mistake. It's not something to ignore. It's a sign, a divine nudge that you are being prepared for something greater. Most people spend their lives settling, not because they don't have dreams, but because it's easier to stick with what's familiar than to step into the unknown. Comfort zones are seductive. They promise safety, predictability, and control. But for those who are called to something greater, comfort becomes suffocating. You start feeling like you don't quite belong in the life you've built so far, not because it's bad, but because it's too small for what's growing inside you. You feel like an eagle in a cage, capable of soaring but stuck in a space that doesn't allow you to spread your wings. That discomfort isn't something to run from, it's something to lean into. It's a signal that you are outgrowing where you are. And when God is preparing you for something extraordinary, He makes the ordinary feel unbearable. Think about the great figures in history, people who have changed the world, people who have stepped into their purpose with courage. Do you think they felt comfortable in their early years? Do you think they moved through life feeling satisfied with what everyone else was satisfied with? No. They felt the weight of something calling them forward, even when they didn't fully understand it. Moses didn't feel at home in Pharaoh's palace, even though he had all the riches and privileges anyone could ask for. He felt a stirring in his soul that told him he wasn't meant to stay there. Esther didn't feel content simply being a queen. She was restless because she was meant to save a nation. That discomfort is always the first sign of purpose knocking at your door. But here's the thing, when you start feeling this way, it can be confusing. You might even question yourself. Why can't I just be happy like everyone else? Why does this job, this relationship, this place that once felt good now feel like a cage? You might even feel guilty for wanting more, thinking you should just be grateful for what you have. And yes, gratitude is important, but gratitude doesn't mean you have to silence the part of you that is being called higher. God isn't preparing you for a small life. He's preparing you for a life of impact, and that means He won't let you stay comfortable for too long. The world will try to convince you that wanting more is selfish, that it's better to fit in, to stay in your lane, to keep your head down and not disrupt the status quo. But purpose doesn't work that way. When God chooses you for something greater, He won't let you blend in. You'll start to feel disconnected from conversations that lack depth. You'll find yourself yearning for growth, for wisdom, for something that feels more real than what the world is offering. And that's not a flaw. That's your calling revealing itself to you. Maybe you've noticed that the things you once tolerated now feel unbearable. The friendships that were built on gossip or negativity don't feel right anymore. The job that used to feel secure now feels like it's draining the life out of you. The routines that once felt safe now feel like shackles. That's not by accident. That's God removing the things that no longer align with who you are becoming. When you are chosen for something greater, you will start to feel the pull toward transformation, whether you're ready or not. But here's where it gets hard. Most people resist this feeling. They push it down, distract themselves, convince themselves that they're just overthinking. Because stepping into something greater requires change, And change is terrifying. It requires walking away from the familiar, embracing uncertainty, and trusting that God has something better even when you can't see it yet. It requires faith. And faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the process. So if you're feeling restless, if you're feeling like the life you've known no longer fits, I want you to hear me on this. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are being prepared. That discomfort is a gift. It is shaking you awake because you are meant for more. Don't ignore it. Don't shrink back. Lean into it. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What is God revealing to me in this season? And then start listening. Start paying attention to the small whispers in your heart. Start making space for the dreams that scare you. Start believing that if God is making you uncomfortable, it's because He's about to move you into something bigger than you ever imagined. The discomfort is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of your transformation. Struggle has a way of making us question everything. When life throws challenge after challenge at you, it's easy to wonder if you're on the wrong path, if you're being punished, or if you're simply not strong enough to handle it. But what if I told you that the very struggles you're facing right now aren't a sign that you're lost, but proof that you are being prepared for something greater? What if I told you that the weight you're carrying isn't meant to break you, but to build you? When God chooses someone for a higher calling, He doesn't hand them an easy life. He refines them, tests them, strengthens them. Not to see them suffer, but to prepare them for the weight of their purpose. If you look at anyone who has ever done something extraordinary, you will see a trail of challenges behind them. You will see moments when they felt like giving up, times when they were knocked down so hard they weren't sure they could stand again. But they did. And they did because their struggles weren't random, they were intentional. God doesn't call the untested. He doesn't place a great destiny in the hands of someone who hasn't been strengthened enough to carry it. When He has something big in store for you, He first makes sure you are strong enough to handle it. And the way He does that is through struggle. It doesn't feel fair when you're going through it. You look around and see people who seem to have it easier, people who don't face the same obstacles, people who don't have to fight as hard just to stay afloat. And you wonder why. Why is your path filled with hardship while others seem to walk an easier road? Why do you keep facing setback after setback while others seem to glide through life? But here's the truth. God is not preparing them the way He is preparing you. He is not molding them for the same kind of greatness He is molding you for. And so your journey cannot look like theirs. Look at the lives of the greatest leaders, the most impactful figures in history. They did not rise because life was easy for them. They rose because they endured, because they learned through their trials, because they built resilience, because they found strength they didn't even know they had. Moses had to flee his home and live in exile before he was called to lead his people to freedom. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison before he stepped into his destiny as a ruler. Even the prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, faced immense hardship, rejection, and loss before his mission unfolded. Struggle was never a sign that they were abandoned. It was proof that they were chosen. And the same is true for you. Every difficulty you have faced, every moment that has tested your faith, every painful experience that made you wonder if you could keep going, it was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to shape you, to make you into the person who is capable of handling the blessings, the influence, the purpose that is ahead of you. Because here's the thing about being chosen. It's not just about receiving something great. It's about being responsible for something great. And responsibility requires strength. It requires resilience. It requires faith that cannot be shaken, even when everything around you is falling apart. When you are being prepared for something greater, you will face challenges that feel unbearable. You will experience moments when you doubt yourself, when you wonder if you're strong enough, smart enough, worthy enough. And in those moments, you have a choice. You can see your struggles as proof that you are not enough, or you can see them as evidence that you are being built for something bigger than you can even imagine. You can let them break you, or you can let them strengthen you, because no great calling comes without a season of refining. Maybe right now you are in the middle of that refining. Maybe you feel like you are being stretched beyond your limits, like you are constantly fighting battles no one else sees. Maybe you've been knocked down so many times that you don't even know if you have the strength to stand up again. But hear me on this. You would not be going through this if you weren't meant for something more. You would not be carrying this weight if you weren't strong enough to bear it. God does not give great battles to weak people. He gives them to those he is preparing for something powerful. So don't let the struggle fool you into believing that you are unworthy. Don't let the hardship convince you that you are forgotten. The very fact that you are being tested this much is a sign that your calling is great, that God is stretching you, molding you, strengthening you for the purpose that is waiting for you. And when that purpose finally reveals itself, when you step into the greatness that has been prepared for you, you will look back on every struggle and realize that none of it was in vain. You will see that every tear, every setback, every challenge was leading you exactly where you were meant to be. And on that day, you will no longer ask, "Why me?" Instead, you will say, "Now I understand." Faith is easy when life makes sense, when everything is falling into place, when the path ahead is clear, when every step feels steady and secure, believing in God's plan feels natural. But what about the moments when everything feels uncertain? When the road ahead is foggy, when doors close without warning, when you're left standing in the middle of confusion, not knowing which way to turn? That's when faith is tested. That's when you find out if your trust in God is real or just convenient. And if you find yourself standing in the middle of uncertainty, but still holding on to hope, still moving forward, still believing that somehow in ways you can't yet see, everything will work out, then that's a sign that you are being chosen for something greater. Faith in uncertainty is not ordinary faith. It's the kind of faith that only comes from knowing deep in your soul that God is guiding you, even when you don't understand the journey. It's the kind of faith that doesn't rely on guarantees or visible proof. It's trusting that even when life doesn't make sense, even when prayers seem unanswered, even when you feel like you're walking blindfolded, God is still working behind the scenes. That kind of faith is rare, and if you have it, it's because God is preparing you for something that requires you to trust Him more than you trust your own understanding. Most people panic when uncertainty shows up. They scramble to control everything, to find quick answers, to create a sense of stability for themselves. And when things don't go their way, when setbacks happen, when nothing seems to be working, they give up. They assume that uncertainty means they are on the wrong path. But for those who are chosen, uncertainty is not a dead end. It's a test. It's a process of refinement, a way for God to see if you will still believe even when you can't see the outcome. If you've ever found yourself in a season of waiting, in a period of confusion, in a space where nothing seems to make sense, but you refuse to let go of faith, that's not by accident. That's because you are being prepared for something that requires a level of trust most people don't have. Think about the people in history who were called to something great. None of them had a clear roadmap. None of them were given all the details in advance. Abraham was told to leave everything behind and walk toward an unknown destination, trusting that God would lead him. Noah built an ark when there was no sign of rain. Mary was told she would give birth to the Messiah without any logical explanation. Every one of them had to rely on faith when nothing around them made sense. They had to trust without proof. And because they did, they walked into a destiny bigger than anything they could have imagined. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're standing in the middle of uncertainty, trying to make sense of a season that feels confusing. Maybe you're questioning why things haven't fallen into place yet, why you're still waiting, why doors that seemed right suddenly close. Maybe you're wondering if you're on the right path at all. But what if this uncertainty isn't a sign that you're lost? What if it's proof that you're exactly where you need to be? What if this season is building the kind of faith you will need for what's ahead? Because here's the truth. If God is calling you to something great, you cannot rely on certainty. You cannot demand a perfect plan before you take the first step. You cannot wait for everything to make sense before you trust. Walking into your purpose requires courage, and courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. It's believing that even when you don't have the answers, God does. It's trusting that even when you don't see the whole picture, God is still painting the masterpiece. Maybe right now, nothing in your life looks the way you expected it to. Maybe you feel like you're walking through the dark, unsure of what's ahead. But if you still have faith, if you still believe that something greater is coming, if you still wake up every morning with a quiet knowing that your life has a purpose bigger than you can see, then you are on the right path. Because that kind of faith is not ordinary. That kind of faith is the mark of someone who is being prepared for something beyond their imagination. So don't let uncertainty shake you. Don't let confusion convince you that you're off track. Trust that if God has brought you to this place, He has a plan for getting you through it. Your job is not to have all the answers. Your job is to keep believing, to keep walking, to keep showing up, even when it doesn't make sense. It's a cave drag. Your job is to keep believing, to keep walking, to keep showing up, even when it doesn't make sense. And one day when you look back, you will see that every moment of uncertainty was actually leading you exactly where you were meant to be. Have you ever noticed how people seem drawn to you even when you don't try? How they open up to you, seek your advice, or feel comforted just by being around you? Maybe you've always had a way of making people feel understood. Maybe your words, your presence, or even your struggles have inspired others in ways you never expected. If this sounds familiar, it's not by accident. It's a sign that God is using you to impact others. And when God chooses you for something great, He doesn't just give you a purpose. He makes you a light for others, even before you fully understand your own path. You don't have to be famous, powerful, or have everything figured out to inspire people. Sometimes the most impactful moments happen in the quiet conversations, in the way you listen, in the way you show kindness when no one else does. Maybe people come to you for advice not because you have all the answers, but because they trust your heart. Maybe your life story, your struggles, your resilience, your ability to keep going despite everything gives others hope. And the thing is, you might not even realize the effect you have on people. You might think you're just living your life, doing your best to survive, but someone else is looking at you and seeing strength. Someone else is finding courage in your journey. God doesn't choose people at random. He doesn't just pick anyone to be a source of inspiration. He chooses those who have been through fire and have come out refined. He chooses those who know what pain feels like so they can comfort others. He chooses those who have walked through darkness so they can be a light. If you find that your words, your experiences, or even just your presence has a way of making others feel seen and understood, it's because you are being used for something bigger than yourself. And here's the thing about being chosen in this way. It's not always easy. When you are someone who inspires others, it can feel like you have to be strong all the time, like you have to have it together, like you can't show weakness, but that's not true. The reason people are drawn to you isn't because you're perfect, it's because you're real, because you've struggled, because you've doubted, you've fallen, you've been through things that could have broken you, but they didn't. And that in itself gives people hope. They see that if you can keep going, so can they. You don't need a platform to make a difference. You don't need to be in the spotlight to change lives. Every time you encourage someone, every time you choose kindness over indifference, every time you show up when someone needs you, you are living out your purpose. The way you make people feel, the way you carry yourself, the way you keep believing even when things are hard, that is what inspires others. And if you have that kind of presence in people's lives, know that it's not by coincidence. It's a calling. But here's something important to understand. When God chooses you to be an inspiration to others, it often means you will face challenges that most people don't. Why? Because you can't truly lead, encourage, or uplift others if you haven't been tested yourself. You can't offer real wisdom if you haven't lived through something that required wisdom. That's why many people who are called to inspire others often experience deep struggles, not because they are being punished, but because they are being equipped. Their wounds become the very thing that helps heal others. Their experiences become a source of strength, not just for themselves, but for everyone they encounter. Maybe you've wondered why you've had to go through so much, why life has tested you the way it has. But what if the things you've overcome weren't just for you? What if they were meant to help someone else? What if every hardship, every lesson, every tear you've shed is being used to bring hope to others? That is what it means to be chosen. It means your life has meaning beyond just yourself. It means your presence alone carries a weight that influences the world around you. So if you've ever felt like you naturally encourage people, if you've ever noticed how others feel safe confiding in you, if you've ever felt like your struggles have given you a deeper understanding of life and people, take that as a sign. You are not just living your life, you are shaping lives around you. You are being used as a vessel for something greater. And the most beautiful part, you don't have to try to inspire others. You don't have to force it. Just by being who you are, by continuing to walk your journey with faith, by choosing love over bitterness, by showing up even when it's hard, you are already making a difference. You are already fulfilling a purpose that is bigger than you can imagine. And one day you will look back and see that every struggle, every challenge, every moment of doubt was all part of the plan to turn you into the light that someone else needed. Rejection is painful. It stings when a door you were certain would open suddenly slams shut. It hurts when an opportunity you worked so hard for slips through your fingers. It's frustrating when the path you thought was meant for you turns into a dead end. In those moments, it's easy to feel like you've failed or that you've been overlooked. But what if rejection isn't rejection at all? What if it's actually redirection? God's way of guiding you towards something far greater than you ever imagined. When God chooses you for something great, He won't allow you to settle for less. He won't let you waste your potential on places, people, or opportunities that aren't aligned with your purpose. And sometimes the only way to push you toward the right path is to close the wrong doors. That's why the things you thought were meant for you didn't work out. That's why the relationships you wanted to last fell apart. That's why the plans you made didn't unfold the way you expected, because what you thought was a setback was actually a setup for something better. It's hard to see this in the moment. When a door closes, it often feels like loss. But if you've ever experienced disappointment, only to later realize that something much better was waiting for you, then you know that what feels like rejection is often protection. It's God's way of keeping you from something that wasn't right for you, even if you couldn't see it at the time. It's His way of making sure you end up where you're truly meant to be. Think about all the times you wanted something so badly, only to later realize that it wouldn't have been good for you. Maybe it was a job that would have drained your spirit. Maybe it was a relationship that would have held you back. Maybe it was a path that seemed right, but would have led you away from your true calling. Looking back, you can see that the doors that closed weren't failures. They were redirections. They were divine interventions, guiding you towards something better, something meant for you. And if you're in that place right now, if you're standing in front of a closed door, if you're feeling the weight of disappointment, if you're wondering why things didn't go the way you planned, trust that this isn't the end of your story. Trust that something greater is coming. Because when God has chosen you for something extraordinary, He won't let you stay where you don't belong. He will shift things, remove things, and sometimes break things apart so that He can build something even better. One of the hardest parts of being chosen for something great is learning to let go of what you thought was meant for you. It's surrendering the timeline you had in mind and trusting that God's timing is better. It's realizing that rejection isn't a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of God's love. His way of keeping you on the right path. Because the truth is, the doors that close are just as much a part of your destiny as the ones that open. Maybe you've been trying to force a door open, thinking that if you just work harder, pray harder, or push harder, things will finally fall into place. But sometimes, no matter what you do, certain doors remain shut. And that's not because you're not good enough or because you're being punished. It's because you are meant for something different, something bigger, something better, something you can't even see yet. And when that better thing finally arrives, when the right door swings open effortlessly, when you step into something that feels aligned with your soul, you'll understand why everything had to happen the way it did. You'll realize that the delays, the disappointments, and the detours weren't obstacles. They were part of the journey. They were shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for the moment when everything would finally make sense. So if you've been experiencing closed doors, if life hasn't gone the way you expected, if you're feeling lost in the space between where you were and where you want to be, don't lose hope. Keep going. Keep trusting. Because every closed door is leading you to the right one. Every rejection is redirection. Every ending is making space for a new beginning. And one day you'll look back and see that the very doors that closed were actually the greatest blessings in disguise. Because they didn't break you, they positioned you for something greater than you ever imagined.